Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle. We will not be joined by Hall for this episode, maybe later on, but we are all joined by Michael Reed, as always, and the best Washington football fan troll on Twitter, KJ Skins. Keith, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on once again. I don't know if you guys realize, but this is actually a lot of fun. Wish I could do it on my own, but I'm just not as good as you guys.
I don't believe that for a second, Keith. Anyone that follows you on Twitter knows the great content that you put out, and I can only imagine what it would be like if you had a show speaking on it. So seriously, I need you to look into that. Everybody, we have a great show lined up for you. We are going to talk about the recent news surrounding the NFL and the Washington football team, and then we're going to have our fan questions to round out the show. So with that being said, let's start off with the latest news regarding the Washington football team. We all talked about on Tuesday about Marty Hurney coming to town, but then yesterday it gets released that they're also bringing Martin Mayhew. So Keith, I'll go to you. Did you feel better after they announced the Mayhew signing?
No, I felt the same. I felt like that they're going into a different direction, as opposed to it doesn't necessarily look like that Hurney is going to have 100% of the decision making. So in a sense, yeah, I guess I felt better, but you know, my argument through this whole process is, what does a GM really do? You know, and Ron Rivera has a lot of say-so in anything, and I don't want to go through with the whole "in Ron we trust" type stuff, but he didn't make bad decisions, you know, in last draft. So it is let's give Ron the benefit of the doubt and say he's going to have the situation under control. As far as, you know, Hurney goes, it was no surprise to me. I mean, he was in the building in 2019. You know, at the end of the day, it's a network where you want to work with people that you know, and Ron feels comfortable, you know, with Hurney. But with Mayhew coming in, I didn't expect that one. That one was a shock, and I have to tell you, I like the older personnel coming in because you know, they have history with the team, and you know me, I love history.
Yeah, and Mayhew, we all know from the 91 season, playing alongside with Darryl Green on probably the best team ever formulated in the NFL with the 91 Washington Redskins. Now, like for me, I felt better with the Mayhew hire because we had talked about on Tuesday with Hurney is that he usually hits on his first rounders, but after that, it's a wash. He doesn't really do well with that. And so we're bringing in Mayhew, another set of eyes, a guy who did have a hand in orchestrating the San Francisco 49ers over the past couple of years. It gave me more confidence with more eyes on the prize. I felt a lot better about that move because then it brought in a younger set of eyes as well, you know, a kind of out of the box thinker. And that's what I would like to see. With just Hurney, I was feeling like iffy about it, but after Mayhew, I felt so much better. I was like, okay, this feels legit. And the fact that they haven't released anything formally, the Washington football team, makes me think they're still like restructuring things. And in my mind, it possibly means that Kyle Smith is still going to be around. I know everyone thinks it's a foregone conclusion that he's gone. In my opinion, it just seems like they're restructuring things right now. What about you, Reed?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel the same. As long as Kyle Smith is kind of still in charge of the whole scouting and the player personnel, I'm completely okay with it. Like we talked about with Hurney, I don't think it's really Hurney, like you said, Keith. What a GM necessarily doesn't. A GM can affect your team a lot, or he cannot really do much of anything.
We saw that,
and that's pretty much what right. And Hurney, I think, is pretty much going to be handling a lot of the off the field stuff. He's going to be handling a lot of these allegations and stuff. He's going to be speaking to the media. He's going to do a lot of these things. And Mayhew's somebody who, he's made some mistakes drafting. Of course he has.
Everyone has.
Most GMs have, exactly. So for him to come in and accept a position that's not GM, but still want to work with Rivera, I think really shows something special that we're building here. He still wants to be here. And Rivera handpicked his two guys. I think that's very important that he has two people that he trusts. And yeah, I think that Kyle Smith, a lot of people are acting like Kyle Smith's not here. Kyle Smith's still here right now. Kyle Smith still has a job with this team. And I still think Kyle Smith has the opportunity to grow in this organization. Like we talked about on Tuesday, I don't think he was ready for a GM job. I think that a lot of Washington fans put way too much stock into just the draft and the free agents that he brought in. There's a lot more to it than that. And I think that these 4 guys, assuming that they keep Smith, all kind of working together, can really do some good things. I think a lot of people around the league believe that Washington is a lot closer than the media may say, and that they're only a few players away. So I guess people see that.
Yeah, one theory that I saw on Twitter, Lord forgive me, I forget the Twitter handle, but they had said, that Kyle Smith could be used with Hurney in a way of kind of getting him up and running for a GM role possibly in a year or two as maybe the assistant GM, because Ron Rivera talked to me, he wanted somebody with more experience. And if he works alongside Hurney as the GM for the next 2 seasons, he could very well be in the right position to be the GM in 2 years. So if that's the kind of thinking they have, I absolutely love that. Now, the other big news that came out today was the Washington football team is the first team to land a betting license. What do you think that means, Keith?
I've got nothing on this one.
I think it means they're going to be able to bet.
Yeah. Bet and hope, I think for another year you don't bet on the Redskins, or excuse me, Washington football team.
Watch your mouth. You're going to have.
I know. I'm sorry.
Groups.
You can bleep that one out later, guys.
No, honestly, I think that because
we're going to blur out your shirt too.
Unfortunately with this one, guys, I don't really have. I mean, I wasn't ready for this one. I don't really have a thought in this whatsoever.
I have a thought.
Go ahead.
When we did the joint interview with Jason Wright, one of the things that I talked to him was about, I said, one of the avenues that we could go down is if sports betting is allowed, you having a kind of, not section, but a place, maybe a kiosk or a tent set up where people can go and place bets during games, not on just the Washington football team, but all around the NFL and all sports. So while they're at the game, they can still go and bet on other games and make money. That's just a revenue generator there in itself. So by them landing this betting license, that tells me they're gearing up for some type of thing like that, where they can have betting in the stadium and be able to have it on their premises. And I obviously love that idea. What about you, Reed?
Yeah, I mean, as you guys know, I was a huge gambler. Gambling ruined my life.
Stop it.
So yeah, I can't say much about it because I can't touch the stuff. You get me started on these little dollar bets, all of a sudden, I'm betting my entire house and my child's college fund. So I can't really touch much on it. I've never bet in my life. I've never been a big bettor. I played penny slots once and I walked away.
For my birthday, when I was I was 27, we went to the casino in Charlestown, and I had never bet before. I had $20. My wife is at the bar getting her drinks, and I was like, you know what? I haven't played anything yet, so I walked up, put the $20 in a slot, and it was a $20 machine. And so I pressed the button, and so then it came up and made a noise. I was like, oh, that's cool. So I kept betting. My buddy comes up, he's like, stop, come here. He printed the ticket, we walked away, and I was like, what, dude? He's like, dude, you just won $1,000.
Yeah, smart move.
I was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And I didn't know that it was a $10 machine, but I had placed a double bet because it was up in the credits, and I had never played before, so I had no idea what was happening. So many people tried grabbing me. It was really weird on the way out there. Yeah, very, very weird.
Little known fact, actually, most casinos are owned by Redskins.
Oh, God. But sorry, Keith, but we interrupted you before after I said about the betting thing.
That was a good joke.
Well, no, yeah, that was a great joke. Threw me off a little bit. No. My question to you guys though was, since you had that type of conversation, I'm not really much into, betting, and I mean, I love to gamble. I'm a 3-card poker guy at the casino, but when it comes down to betting at games at the stadium, obviously the positive is bringing in revenue, but what's the purpose of the revenue? What is this revenue doing to benefit the team?
So essentially what you're doing is you're telling fans that they can do everything that they want to do inside of the stadium. They don't have to leave. They don't have to do anything on their phone. They don't have to worry about any of that. They can have a legit buyout and buy-in process for you right there inside the stadium. Just another selling point, as if you're selling beer or anything like that, because something I didn't know is how big the betting industry really is in the gambling industry.
Right. And
huge
apps that they have.
Because like Reed, I'm not a huge gambler. I've never really done that before. Hall does it here and again, but when
Paul's
like
got a
hearing
problem.
hearing Lurch on the radio for 106.7 how much he gambles and cakes, it kind of blew my mind. I think it's something that could really, really help the team kind of get in the good graces of fans and bring the fans back to the stadium. Just gives them another avenue or outlet.
That's what it would be. Okay. I mean, obviously I know they're making money off of it, but no, that makes sense. Now you can go to a game, gamble that way, and it gets folks back into your seats, especially home fans, so they don't have to worry about, the away fans coming in. Gotcha.
Exactly. I know it's not that big of an idea, obviously, but it would make sense that would be why they're going down this avenue of being the first one getting the betting license. It's a huge feat. They've been a team of firsts this year, without a doubt. Now, I wanted to ask you guys because two quotes had come about. One being from Campbell, the new head coach of the Detroit Lions. He called Matt Stafford a stud. And then Darnold's new coach in Salah, he said that there was a reason he was taken as the third overall pick in the draft. Reed, do you still think that those guys are attainable and on the trading block?
Yeah, I still think that. I mean, look, like the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase said, everybody has a price. You can get whoever you want. No, but I still think that those people are there. It really, a lot of it's going to depend on how the draft falls for Detroit. I mean, and look, I know you would rather get Stafford before the draft, but I mean, it really depends on a lot of things. I could see New York going a completely different direction and maybe surrounding Sam Darnold with some more talent, maybe exactly. A receiver or an offensive tackle. So it really depends. I mean, those guys, they're right. They do have two talented quarterbacks, and Salah's right. Sam Darnold was taken number 3 for a reason. He was considered widely the best quarterback in that draft by a lot of people for a reason. He's naturally talented, and it just depends on, do you want to give these guys another year? Or do you want to start your rebuild right now? And Dan Campbell, by the way, I will say, I think that is a terrific hire by Detroit.
Yeah, me too. It's same with Salah with the Jets.
Yeah.
I think those two have a mindset that's going to really change the direction of those teams. But I don't think they're on the trading block. I think they're staying, especially Salah with Darnold. The biggest issue that you have is you have to find a quarterback because he kind of knows from San Francisco, you can have a great defense. You can have a stellar running game. Quarterback position is kind of holding you back a little bit, and I don't see him moving the chip away with Darnold having to take another guy in the top 5 or top 10 in the draft. Stick with your guy and then draft defensively, I think would be his mindset. Right. Now, that's where it goes in with Watson for me. It makes sense for them because they have no draft capital. They don't have first-round picks for the next 2 years. They don't really have the assets in place to build their team around Watson, so realistically, it tells you that they can't go to free agency. They don't have top value picks. So you'd have to generate them in some other capacity, and that would be by trading Watson. So I don't think that Stafford and Darnold are on the trading block. I think these are just clickbait articles as of right now. What about you, Keith?
Yeah, I personally don't think they're on the trading block either, especially like you said, Darnold. You pretty much hit the points that I was thinking. I mean, quarterback is such a huge position that teams have trouble filling. And so when you have a younger guy like Darnold, you're not just offering him up, just to go get a guy. It doesn't make any sense. Now you have a younger coach coming in who, I think is going to build around that guy. Now Stafford's a little different story.
Yeah.
Stafford, I'm thinking that he, could be because of his age. I mean, it's one of those. Now it's respect to the player and to the office, like, where we stand. We all know Stafford, is a good quarterback. We all know that he is a tough ass quarterback, but now you've got to look at the player and say, what do you want to do? And I think that if you leave it up to the player to decide where they want to be at this point, I'm thinking Stafford's going to tell them that they really don't want to go through another rebuild, considering his age and the years that he's already spent in the NFL.
Right. Yeah, I think Stafford is somebody who, if he were to be on a different team and actually was on a franchise that, won some games, he would be a lot more respected around the league. He'd be considered in some of these talks about some of the best quarterbacks, top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL. At the same time, these two head coaches, I mean, what do you expect them to say about their quarterbacks? Do you expect them to say, oh, no, Matthew Stafford, he sucks. We got to get him out of here. He's old. Or Sam Darnold, he just hasn't accomplished anything. We're going to go a different route. I mean, of course, they're going to stick behind their guys. And one thing that I did think was interesting was Martin Mayhew. He's the person who drafted Matthew Stafford in Detroit. He did say at one point, if I could build a team around 22 Matthew Staffords, we would win every game. We would win a championship. So he does love Stafford. He does see a lot in him. So, I mean, take that for what it is.
Yep. And the NFL is all about connections.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
It's not what
exactly.
you know, it's who
Anytime
you
you-
know, baby.
Look at us hiring Hurney.
Yep.
That's-
And that's and they'll tell you that. Like anytime you see guys out on the block, whether it be personnel, whether it be players, more personnel, I would say. But
Right.
you got a personnel guy out there, and they'll automatically they'll research the ties. Anyone in Washington who has ties with this guy, and then create a scenario as to how this guy could potentially come because of connection. The NFL is like that. That hasn't changed over the years.
Right.
So
It's probably not something that will ever change, to be perfectly honest.
No.
It is a brother league, and that's kind of how it
Mhm.
goes. Now, that being said, speaking of brothers, Phillip Rivers just retired over the week along with Drew Brees. Two great careers by that guy. There is no doubt that Drew Brees is a Hall of Famer. He's
Right.
played very, very well over his career, won a Super Bowl, so he's done enough to get in the Hall of Fame. My question to you, Keith, is Phillip Rivers a Hall of Fame quarterback? It's something that I've seen talked about that I have an opinion on. I would love to know what you think about that.
depends on how you want to measure it. I mean, if you want to measure, it by wins, the type of wins, no. If you want to measure by stats, if you want to measure by loyalty to one team, and I know that that's truly not an option, but then yes. So it really is in the eye of the beholder of how they're gonna, measure out that situation. Sadly for me, the only thing I'm going to remember of Phillip Rivers from now on is Will Compton posting out that he finally pulled out.
That was such a good tweet, by the way. Shout out.
That
to
was
Will
an
Compton.
amazing tweet.
That was one of my favorite tweets of all time.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is I'm the kind of guy, I'll go through the thread to find the people who didn't get it, and those are the people that I feast on.
That
Find
must
their
have been
weaknesses.
hilarious because
Yeah.
that was, like you guys said, that was the perfect tweet. I mean, everyone was bouncing around that. He went right for it. Will Compton is perfect. He's one of the funniest guys, and I think he just picked up his podcast again with Taylor Lewan. Now with Rivers, the one I went through this with Tony Romo, with like people that were Cowboys fans saying that Tony Romo was a Hall of Fame quarterback because his numbers matched up and they were up there top.
Yeah.
But at no point in time was Tony Romo ever even close to being the best quarterback in the league at that time. And that's how I kind of feel about Phillip Rivers. Yes, the stats are great. He did incredibly well. He was a very, very good quarterback. But that doesn't warrant him being in the Hall of Fame. When you kind of whitewash the Hall of Fame inductees, especially with the quarterbacks, you kind of let anyone in. And it should be one of those things that when you get in, it's earned. And that's for people like Drew Brees, who did get a Super Bowl, who was counted out and was able to fight through it, and then be literally the pillar of the NFC South for many, many years. That's the kind of person I believe that deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Unfortunately for Rivers, he played incredibly well. He was one of the best quarterbacks in the league, but it was never like he was top 3 at any point in time. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so in my opinion, I don't think he gets in.
And yeah, that's another thing. If you're not out there winning Super Bowls, you better be winning a couple MVP awards. You better be out there being the guy, the best quarterback.
I love his
NFL.
attitude though.
And I will say, look, if I am to go back to that 2004 draft and I'm starting a franchise and I'm to take any quarterback between Eli and Big Ben and Phillip Rivers, I'm taking Phillip Rivers.
Me too.
I
Me
really
too.
am. I think that the teams around Eli and Big Ben are what won them the Super Bowls ultimately. I think that Phillip Rivers is just hands down, just his shit talking. When you go and watch these clips of him, it's so funny. I mean, the guy is just a genius when it comes to getting under his opponent's skin. And and if you talk about a Hall of Fame father, anybody who can raise that many kids, whoo, man, I'm sitting there struggling with one, not getting any sleep. I couldn't imagine having, what is it, 9? If he had,
it's probably 12 by now.
12 by now. Yeah, right. Imagine if he were to trade in every child of his for an MVP award or a Super Bowl title. He would be hands down the greatest quarterback of all time.
He would. And
one of those kids better go to the NFL.
Right.
Yeah, even. But
Just
then again,
like
do you really want? Do you really want Phillip Rivers teaching you mechanics? That's the other thing.
It's true. Look, I want to give a lot of credit. I want to like us putting down Phillip Rivers in any aspect.
No, he's
the
great.
guy is a consummate professional. He's very good at what he does. He's not your typical robot. He's out there talking crap, and I absolutely love it. because
And he could eventually get in.
Yeah,
Eventually.
and for me, one of the marks of what a great quarterback is being able to interchange wide receivers and making superstar wide receivers out of these guys that you just plug in.
That.
And look, you look back to Vincent Jackson, and then I forget what the other guy's name is, something Floyd. I forget, Malcolm Floyd did really well for him as well. Mike Williams blowing up, Keenan Allen. They seem to keep pumping these wide receivers in. It didn't matter. He still put up good numbers. It's just not Hall of Fame worthy, in my opinion. Now, the other news that came about, Dwayne Haskins just signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Reed, do you like that move?
From a standpoint of the way that he plays on the field, yes, I do. I think that when he was coming out, one of the comparisons, Kyle, I know we talked about to him was Big Ben, just with the way that he moved in the pocket and the way that he could break tackles and still make a play. But I think that it shows how little faith that they have in him, that they signed him to a future/reserve contract for 1 year. Very smart by them. You never know what you're going to get with him. Look, his thing, it's never been a question of his talent, although, I mean, some people may question that. But it's everything going on off the field. It's just how immature he is. And look, if he can sit behind Big Ben for a year, preferably 2, just because I don't think he's going to be there mentally by 2022, then that's great signing. I think regardless, it's pretty smart signing because they can take the risk. But yeah, will it work out? I don't think Dwayne hasn't shown me anything to make me think it's going to work out for him.
I think this is a win-win situation for both aspects. One, the Steelers,
unless they lose,
it's a low risk, high reward for them. And then for Dwayne Haskins, he's able to sit for a year and kind of learn from Big Ben, and who, like you said, we talked about, that was the guy that we compared him to when he was coming out. And so I think it's a perfect recipe because Dwayne's not a bad kid. He's not like he's not like AB, who's just a complete nutcase. It's just like he just needs to get beat a little bit, like as a toddler, like spanked a little bit. And Mike Tomlin is just like Ron Rivera in that aspect, where it's not going to fly with him. He'll put you in your place. And that's why I think Mike Tomlin is the perfect head coach for Dwayne to go to. I think that he'll be able to connect with him, and they will get the best bang for their buck out of Dwayne, because I think Dwayne's upside is way higher than Mason Rudolph's. The best thing that Mason Rudolph did was get hit in the head with his own helmet. But Dwayne is actually a very good passer, and I think that he will flourish in this scheme. And he doesn't have people clamoring for him to start right away. And I think that's the biggest aspect for him to be able to learn, because at Washington we knew we needed time, but it was like the pressure to start kind of threw a wrench into things, in my opinion. What about you, Keith? Do you like that move?
I don't really care.
I know.
I honestly don't care about the move. I have done some thinking on this since I saw that move was made. It depends, because you have 2 Dwayne Haskins. You have Twitter Dwayne Haskins, who says all the right things, and then you have Dwayne Haskins off the field, who does all the wrong things.
Right.
And I have to, actually, to touch back to the whole 1 year, contract. Can't really go off of that as far as how they think about him, because it seems like that's the contract that's offered to QBs that have a lot of questions.
Yeah.
They get these 1 year deals, and it's one of those, see what you got,
smart
type of deal.
Yeah. Right.
Let's be honest, they're getting them out of young cost they're getting them out of low cost.
Yep.
With Big Ben possibly on his way out the door. It is a high reward, low risk type situation. So, good for him.
Yeah.
Do I think personally, that he's changed? That's to, remain to be seen. I mean, listen, the kid didn't do anything that was that awful, but when you look at it in a leadership standpoint, he was not that here in Washington, and people have expectations, and it sucks for these young kids because they want to party. They want to enjoy their status that they have. They want to enjoy the money that they've never seen before. So they don't really get it and understand. Sorry, I got a call coming in here. That's the first. All right, so you guys are still there, so I'll keep rolling.
Yeah, keep going.
They don't really. Yeah, my fault, guys. So they really, they don't really understand what it takes, to be a leader, especially in the NFL. They think that if they go out there and play well, that's it. And sometimes that's not the case. You have to be mentally ready. You have to have your teammates believe in you as well. And I think that was the teammates were trying, but they gave all the chances that they could. And then you could tell towards the end, the way that they reacted towards, towards him. And then the way the narrative changed when Alex got back on the field or when Heineke came out there, it was a different feel than when Dwayne was out there. Right. It was almost like a toleration towards the end until they cut him. So, ultimately overall, does he deserve a second chance? Absolutely. I mean, I think everyone deserves second chances. I mean, he didn't do anything awful to begin with. So
even Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yeah, well, that's a tough comparison, but Haskins ain't out there eating people, but
that we know of. We can't say that for sure.
You're right. Well, he was eating booty.
That's a fact. Yeah.
Right.
As far as we know. Yeah.
Yeah. So good for him. I hope he goes out there, and I hope that I hope the best for him. I never wish anyone failure. Right. I wish I was at, where they were at, but they got the talent to be there. So sometimes I even feel stupid talking about these guys because I'm like, one hit and I'm, injured for life. Like I can't handle this.
What was I doing at 23?
Exactly. I was at strip clubs giving $10. This guy's giving thousands and thousands.
Yeah. Look at us. It's a poverty move. I was doing the same
I
thing.
made $20 last 3 hours.
But I will say, I do think it's funny that Dwayne, I mean, shout out to him. Dwayne is very good at social media. If he doesn't have a career in the NFL, he could have a career running team social medias. He's already posting pictures of him in great photoshopped jerseys of him wearing number 3 and why he chose the number 3 from Pittsburgh. So good for him. But the other thing is, with Dwayne's off the field stuff, do you really want him to hang out with Big Ben off the field? Do you want them going into bathroom stalls or something together? I don't think so. Goodness. He is a good person for him to learn from.
Yes, and speaking of bathroom stalls, ever since the offseason,
can't wait to hear this segue.
Last week, the war started over the name change, and Keith kind of reached out to me and said, he had a spiel for the whole name change and everything, and how he feels about what the name should be and what it represents. So, Keith, the floor is yours, sir.
There we go.
Well, oh, man, I have been going back and forth on, the name change, and I went through several different emotions, as an older generation fan. And I said to myself, this is pretty effed up because we didn't get a choice in this matter. It was almost like everything was gone. And I mean, when they announced the retirement, everything was gone. And when they were also showing the videos of them peeling off all the old stuff and putting the new stuff, I was getting mad as hell. I was salty as shit. And, because it was like, wow, all these years that this team was proud to have that name, within a couple days like that, it's gone. Time to move on. Get over it is basically the way that I took it. That opinion started to change, not too long ago. And then of course you had the Red Wolves cult out there. You had the Red Wolves cult out there that was actually making they were making a big push, and then Fred Smoot gets on board, and next thing you know, they've got a little fan base going on,
and then Smoot claimed he made it up.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, that too. Listen, I've got some stories on Smoot just from past even before days. Twitter. Yeah, even before Twitter was born, this guy was wild. Well, you guys know about the boat situation, but anyways, that's off topic. So, my thing is this is, a lot of people are misunderstood, and they think that the Native American community that opposed the name was the biggest reason why the name changed. They got tired of us being in the news because of it. I didn't really care that we were in the news. If anything, people were talking about us, whether it be good or bad. I mean, the name is still, the team is still in the picture, but, obviously we all know that the, corporate pressure, was applied, a chokehold was applied, and, Dan was going to lose a lot of money if he didn't make the move. And we all know that there was some, background reasons for that. That's not even worth getting into at this point.
Right.
But, my problem, with this whole thing is you're stripping this team, you're stripping everyone, not even the team. You're stripping the fans of an identity, things that we used to spend a ton of money on to invest in because we believed in that brand. none of us really looked into the actual definition of the name itself and was like, oh, Redskins, the actual name, that's an awesome name. Honestly, Redskins itself is a stupid name.
Yes, it is.
But we grew up in it, right? We grew up with it.
It represented something.
It means something more.
It represented something. Absolutely. It means something more to us. And, you know, that's just the way that it is. So, you know, my thing is this is, you know, this whole situation is, you know, what I'm coming to realize when I'm, you know, battling the Red Wolves folks is this is coming down to, you know, old generation versus new generation. And no one really right now, not everyone is going to agree to a name, but it's old generation versus new generation. And I started getting super angry when I saw that we were, you know, the team was catering to the future of the team. You know, first of all, fuck the future, okay? Fuck the future of the team. I'm still alive.
Yes.
I'm still here. And I'm 41 years old, but I'm the coolest 41 motherfucking year old you'll ever know.
That's a fact.
And thank you. That's a fact. And, you know, so being old gen, I grew up in a Michael Jordan era. I'm cool as shit. Okay. You know, but listen, you know, but in all seriousness, you know, I really started to have hatred for the Red Wolves cult. I will backtrack the hatred a little bit now at this point because I get it. 25 plus years of losing and only 3 playoff appearances under the Snyder tenure. Right. Why the fuck would that fan base even care about a name? They don't, because all the name has been associated to is losing. Well, the old man is coming in and telling y'all that doesn't fucking matter to me. Right? Because at the end of the day, I'm old, but I'm also a traditionalist. I have ties with, you know, my family, my dad, who was a Redskins fan, you know, and so I'm just going to fight for those memories because you take away the name, which it's gone, but you take away all that. I feel like so has my memories, you know, because, you know, now what we're going to do is because everybody's offended by fucking everything. Now we're going to take the name and logo off these banners where we've already won the Super Bowls. And we're going to go ahead and put that stupid W on there. Now, I say stupid W because I'm all fired up right now. I actually don't mind the W. But
W's pretty
anyways,
cool.
W is all right. W is okay.
W can
but
say.
I don't want things to be replaced. And that's the problem that I'm having. I've had to come to terms that the name is gone, right? I fought and argued the name, and the name means everything to me. It doesn't matter what it means to me because the name's gone. It's not coming back. It's done. So now I had to go through emotional phase 1, which I did. Now I'm entering emotional phase 2. Emotional phase 2, let me fight all these people who say that they don't care about tradition, because I'm telling you right now, at this point, the fight that I'm going to have is if we're putting W and replacing the other logo. If we're not going to say the word, they are Redskins. So when we're watching football and they start talking about little history snippets like they do, you know, during games, and if they say Washington football team or whatever we're going to be called by then, and they don't recognize us as the Redskins during that time frame, that's what I'm afraid of.
Right.
So, you know, that's where my fight comes in. And people really just don't, people decide, like, I don't want to be the guy to do this, but, you know, culture appropriation was probably one of the biggest reasons why this name was 100%. A problem to begin with. And one of our number one fans, you know, may God rest his soul, I'm not here to talk down on him.
Chiefs,
okay. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. You know, I'm not here to talk, but when you're wearing a headdress,
valid point,
and you're carrying a tomahawk, and you have become the face of the fans of the Washington Redskins, and you've been doing this, since 1978.
Right.
You're stirring up a fan base, or you're stirring up a group of people that don't want to be fucked with. And I'm not saying that he was, you know, the whole reason, but again, back then, cultural appropriation seemed to be okay. Everyone got a pass for doing it.
Right.
You know, but we did nothing, and this is kind of where I'm starting to change my tune. We did nothing as an organization to change the perception. We just allowed people to go out and culture appropriate, to do all these, you know, crazy things. And now here we are, you know, 20, 30 years later, in a situation where we're in a sensitive world and things have to change. Right. So, and no one has mentioned that, but that is the hard facts and truth.
Yeah.
That when you poke the people that are opposing, this is what eventually happens. And no one wants to talk about that. Now, God rest his soul. Nothing bad about him. He was a true fan.
He didn't mean it, right?
Right. He didn't mean it in that way as to where, because the world wasn't back then wasn't the way that it is now.
Right.
So that is a to be fair statement. But again, this is where we're at right now. So I put out there on Twitter today, one of the biggest problems people have with Washington football team is the word team.
Yeah.
They're tired of being laughed at. All right. Simple solution. Washington football, drop the team, keep the W, put the W on the helmet, put the stripes back on the helmet. And I am tired of people fucking telling me stripes are so outdated. Do you know that the defenders know where you're looking? When the quarterback's about to throw, shut the fuck up. They're just stripes.
That doesn't make
it's
any
not
sense.
That serious.
Yeah, you can't see their eyes.
He's steering right at me. He's going to follow where the stripes are going.
Anything that's going to help your quarterback. That's the argument.
Shut up.
And
if
Keith,
it was a problem, it would have been pulled off a long time ago.
Right.
Yeah, and Keith, to your point about the younger fan base, because it was paraded on Twitter that, the younger fan base wanted Red Wolves, and that's why we should do it for the new generation of fans. Well, the fact is the reason why we don't have my age of people really running around rah-rah is because there wasn't any winning. Winning changes that. The name won't have anything to do with the younger generation. They'll drop it and then faster than a bag of potatoes if you're not winning. So, look, it'd be great to cater to them with a name, but at the end of the day, winning is what's going to bring that younger generation, not just some random name that somebody brought up and Fred Smoot signed off on.
And to that point, Kyle, exactly like you said, and I'm sorry, Keith, I'll let you get right back to it, but everybody in the beginning, remember during the summer, it seemed like everybody hated the name Washington football team. Now all of a sudden we won the division and made the playoffs, and people are like, it's not that bad. I could get by with it for a little bit.
Correct.
Exactly.
And people aren't seeing the big, and real quick, because I know we're on a time schedule here, but, people don't understand too that, all right, so we're we're being laughed at now. First of all, it's year one. When you start winning, ain't no one laughing at the name. Right. At the end of the day, it's called the New York Football Giants. And, a lot of people's rebuttal was, I bring up New York Football Giants because,
that's a good one,
we think that's stupid. But, it's become a part of their name. It's being said all over national media. And also, if you look at it, a lot of people's rebuttal was, well, we need a name for marketing and better branding. Really? Because if you've noticed that, using that team as an example, they dropped the Giants, the names off the helmets. You do see it on merchandise, but they really go after that NY of what's on their helmets.
Yep,
so what is it any different? Right. So what is it any different by just putting a W on the helmet? And I can even agree to that. And you still have the ability to use that established 1932, like Jason Wright said, that he wanted to do. At the end of the day, he doesn't want to make this, transition this into some, random ass bird, in his words. And, I agree with that 100%. People really should get over this whole football team thing and just look, this is an opportunity for the old fans to be able to say Redskins, die off, and then let it be what it becomes later on down the road. Right. We don't necessarily need to have an exact name right now. Washington football team seems to work. Washington football can work. Just let it be until you find out what it is. At least let us old folks die off first.
Right.
And I'm glad that you were able to spill, because they were great points, Keith. It really was.
100%.
And I know you're very passionate about it, and for good reason. Tradition has a lot to go into it. And the 1932 was something I thought I tweeted at Julie and Jason to put that at midfield this year, because they had a bunch of questions regarding what was going to be at midfield. I think they just ended up putting the NFL logo. And I thought, why wouldn't you put the estimated 1932 at the center? So I would absolutely love that aspect of it, having that be more of a figurehead.
Established, not estimated.
Oh, well, my bad. Established. Yeah, sorry.
I'm
thinking fast, okay? I'm drinking coffee.
1932.
But let's move on to our fan questions. And the first one's going to be from the Colonel, because I didn't ask this on last episode.
There you go, Colonel.
Yeah, thank you, Colonel. His question is with Landon Collins' future, because, Cameron Curl and Chase Young today were put out as the most, Cameron Curl, but Cameron Curl had 37 defensive stops, leading his division, the first position, first rookie to do that since 2006. So what does this mean for Landon Collins, Mike? Do you think they're going to restructure his deal? Do you think he's going to kick back to free safety? What do you think is going to happen there?
I hope Landon Collins doesn't kick back to free safety. I think that, look, let's be honest. If Ron Rivera was here when we signed Landon Collins wouldn't be here. He never put that much. I've talked about it before. He never really invested that much into the back end of his secondary. He invested a lot into his front seven. And then he would get by with some players that were pretty good back there that could do their job. Landon Collins is a very talented player. He struggled early in the season, but then he started to turn things around. Unfortunately, Dallas, he was having his best game. Then he got hurt. You see all this stuff thrown around about Landon Collins switching him to linebacker, which I do get because in today's NFL, he could be used kind of in one of those hybrid safety linebacker roles, which is kind of what he's used as anyway. But I think when you have those two playmakers, people like Jack Del Rio and Ron Rivera, they preach versatility. If you can get somebody who can get back there and cover some backs or tight ends like Cameron Curl can, right, and can play up close to the line like both of them can, I think that there's a way that you can use both of them. But I do, like I said, I do think that if Ron Rivera was here when Landon Collins was signed, we would not have signed Landon Collins.
Yeah, and I think that
So I don't know his commitment to him.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you. I think that is one of the biggest question marks heading into this offseason because I think the draft of free agency is going to say a lot. I know a lot of people had linked Anthony Harris, the Vikings free safety, to us, and if they go after him in free agency, I think that the writing's on the wall for Landon Collins at that point. Now, do I think that there's going to be anybody willing to trade for him? Is there going to be anything reciprocated? I'm not sure. But if Landon Collins is on the roster next season, I like it because, like you said, he could be that hybrid as much as he doesn't want to, as much as everyone says it's not possible. I definitely think it is possible for him to stay in the box and be a playmaker from that standpoint. How do you feel about the secondary, Keith? Do you think Landon's going to be able to fit in, or do you think that he's going to end up leaving the team?
Yeah, I think that he could be potentially on a trading block. Again, I'm not in the coach's head to know how they really feel about Curl, but at what we saw, in game time situations, I mean, the guy balled. So, now you're in a situation where you just paid big money for someone thinking that they were going to solve your problems in that position. And really, it was actually the complete opposite. Then you had a guy who's not getting paid nearly, what Collins is getting paid, and he's actually producing.
Right.
But I think that, it could be a potential trade situation. With that, if they feel that they can't move him into, a different role. I've saw a lot of things out there on Twitter. They basically was putting this guy, damn near tight end on Twitter, between all the positions. They were just trying to find a spot for the guy. But, in all seriousness, I mean, that's really a tough one. This guy, there's a lot of contract there, and you're going to have to figure out.
You're going to have to eat a lot.
That's the big thing. Yeah, you're going to have to eat a lot. And honestly, he hasn't shown what he has been getting paid. Right. He hasn't shown his worth yet. Doesn't mean that he won't, but also too, do you put him back in that position and kill, Curl's motivation, his drive? Do you kill his, his thought process? Is he going to take this as, it's the demotion, type deal, if Collins is still on his team, filling in that position? I don't know. That's where, the coach comes in and, we're looking at guys getting rest. There's going to be some heavy rotation, I feel, in that situation, depth within that position. And I think that we just have to look at, if this team is a true brotherhood, like, we've been seeing, during game times and practice and clips on Twitter and Facebook and all of that, I think it could still fit. Truthfully, Collins is getting paid what he's getting paid regardless of the role that he plays. He was getting paid hurt, so it's just one of those things. I think if you got a brotherhood going, you find a way to make it work. I think if there's some actual trade value, you find a way to trade them.
I completely agree. Thank you, Colonel. That was a great question. Now, Paul Murphy's question, it's in regards to the future and a new stadium. And if you guys have any, would you rather it be an indoor stadium or outdoor stadium? And I'll start with you, Reed.
I'm somebody, I like the whole indoor theme. I know a lot of people won't because of the whole history of RFK, everything. And I completely understand that. Look, I get it. But I think that the ultimate goal of Dan Snyder and the rest of this organization is to eventually host a Super Bowl. So I think that they would want something indoors, maybe with a retractable roof. Like you see nowadays, all these teams that are getting new indoor stadiums, they're not even necessarily indoor stadium. I mean, they are, but they have retractable roofs. They can do whatever. So, I mean, it'll be interesting. But I definitely think that they will go towards one of those retractable roofs, something of the sort.
I would much rather go with outdoor. I know that the Super Bowl thing is what everyone wants, but I figured you to be a grass guy.
Give it that RFK feel.
Figured you to be a grass guy, Reed. I am.
I'm just saying I think that they're going to go that way. I would rather it be an outside stadium than an outdoor stadium.
Because, with the injuries and everything, there's a lot of links between the artificial turf and everything like that. But, I would personally like the outdoor, but, I'm not in that building. But I love the aspect of the outdoor feel, especially there with the Potomac. Having an indoor stadium kind of takes that away. So I'd rather have that kind of aspect to it because everyone knows I want the stadium in D.C. That's where I want to go back to RFK. I want to redo that and do it well, have the rocking stands and everything, and have the just the whole euphoria about the stadium like they did it with RFK. What about you, Keith? Do you have a care about it?
Yeah, I mean, the first game I attended was, outdoor, and I did like that whole feel to it. But then I started changing my perception when I've been to several New Orleans games, especially during cold season, and the stadium's heated, and you go in there and
feels great.
Take your coat off, feels great. I'm an old man with some pretty sore bones right now, so the heat. But also too, honestly, there's also a difference with crowd noise too. Crowd noise is much louder in a dome.
Right.
New Orleans was eccentric. Their fans were, is eccentric even a good word? Is that the right word?
I think so. I think so.
Either that or electric.
Electric.
All right, there it is.
Same thing, I think.
Yeah. I'll Google that shit later. I think it's eccentric though, but it's. The crowd there was insane, and I think that if they would be in an outdoor stadium, I don't think I would have heard the sound the way that I would have heard, in the dome, much louder. And
that's a great point.
Yeah. So, but then also to be fair, the dome is actually smaller in a capacity because the seating goes up as opposed to, FedEx kind of goes out, with their seating. But anyways, so either or. I like you said, you guys, hit the nail on the head with the retractable. I think you can't go wrong with either. I mean, it gets cold, you close that thing. During the great weather, you open it. Let the fans experience two different worlds.
Right, and like you said, Keith, the indoor stadium, like New Orleans, explosive indoor, eccentric, I believe was the word you used. Like it's very
I'm gonna
loud,
Google that shit.
Two of the other stadiums that are considered the loudest in the NFL are both outdoor stadiums, surprisingly, in Seattle and Kansas City. But
that was going to be
at the same time, they both have winning teams. So I guess if you're winning, then maybe you can just.
That was going to be my thing. Is like I'm pretty sure Washington. I don't care if it's outdoor. If it's a winning team and they're possibly in the playoffs every year competing for a Super Bowl,
it's going to be.
I think that stadium is going to be rocking. And I think even if it is indoor or outdoor, I think it's going to be loud as hell to be in that place. Great question from Paul Murphy. Now, Mike has a question for us. Any circumstances that we think that Trent Williams could come back this offseason, Keith?
No. I would like it to happen. I'm a Trent Williams guy. I've had several interactions with Trent. Guy is a lot of people, don't realize he was one of the only guys that would, have Redskins gear on during the off season.
Right.
Trent was you look at a lot of these guys, they're either trying to wear their own brand or, they're just wearing their everyday expensive clothing lines that we can't afford, half of us, or, we're getting the shit at Ross, but
TJ
Maxx, yeah, but no, he was a true Redskins, guy, and I've actually had some personal interaction with him and got to pick his brain a little bit, and there's not a doubt in my mind, that he loved this team, and I know it hurt like hell that he had to leave.
Yeah.
A lot of people are mad at him now because of the way the scenario went down. Okay, sure, fine, whatever. I know what was able to talk about for the few minutes that I had in one of the interactions, and the guy truly loved being a Redskin. So would I like him to come back? Yeah, I mean, I definitely think he can still add something to this offensive line and help out whoever's behind center. But does that happen? Who knows?
Yeah, and that's a big question because, when Ron Rivera stepped into the building last year, he said, I wasn't going to give anybody a contract until they showed that they were about the team and they proved it, that they were all about it. And I know that Trent
Yeah.
took the ability to leave, and that's his thing. My question is, it's Ron's decision. Would I love to have Trent Williams back at left tackle? Absolutely. I don't want to take anything away from Cornelius Lucas and the great stride and the progression that he showed this year. He definitely deserves a spot at the starter. But I think it comes down to money at the end of the day. And if Trent Williams is willing to sacrifice that kind of salary cap, that big money to come back and play, then 100%. And if Ron is okay with it, if he's proven that, 100%. Like you said, I'm a Trent guy. I didn't like what his agent said on the radio, but that doesn't mean that I have any resentment towards Trent. He was a warrior for this team, just like Morgan Moses for many years. And a lot of what he did sacrifice a lot for himself. I know that. So I don't think it's going to happen, Mike. But if it did, if there was a possibility of Ron being open to it, I would absolutely love it. What about you, Reed?
Yeah, I mean, Trent Williams was literally my favorite player from the moment he drafted. From his rookie season when he got suspended with Fred Davis for puffing the Chiba to all the way through slapping Richard Sherman up until his departure. I loved Trent Williams. I still do love Trent Williams. He's, in my opinion, the dude, even though he's widely considered one of the best offensive tackles in the NFL, I still think he's underappreciated, but with how good he is and his natural ability. So would I love to have him back? Absolutely. Like I said, he's been my favorite player since he was drafted here. I had a Trent Williams jersey. How many people have O-line jerseys, Kyle? I know you have a Sheriff one.
I have a Williams jersey. I got it the year he left.
Right. Those Trent's gloves.
Oh, look at that.
How many people have one? How many people have a pair of his gloves?
That's
Nobody.
awesome,
and
Keith.
What size are those? Those look like UFC gloves. Like, Jesus.
They're huge.
They're huge.
They're huge. The fingers couldn't even fit in the actual glass case.
Oh,
or, well, the plastic case. But, yeah, it's crazy.
Right. Do I think he comes back? Ultimately, no. But I could see maybe a scenario where he does want to come back. Because like you said, Keith, he's a Washington football team or Redskin through and through. And maybe once he sees that the direction that the franchise is headed, maybe he would. But like you said, Kyle, the money, Cornelius Lucas played very well with not on a big contract. And I'll say it again. Historically, Ron Rivera's teams do not go out and spend a bunch of money on the offensive line. But would I love Trent back? Absolutely. That's not even a question. Will he come back? Probably not.
All right. And so
I also think too the coach's decision. I mean, I think that ship sailed just because of the way that whole thing went down. Right. I don't think there's any ill will, to Trent. I just think that when it came down to business, he made the business call, and
I can't even blame him for
that.
I can't even blame him for being upset with what happened.
Right. Exactly.
Honestly.
No. Definitely not.
Now, Mike, I know that you had a bunch more questions, but we're going to have to go rapid fire here to get through all of them. Nathan Coleman's question it's actually a really good one. Reed, I'll start with you. With the league running more and more two tight end sets, why is nobody talking about the position as a need for 2021?
I think that they are in mock drafts. They definitely are when it comes to a third round pick. You look at somebody like Pat Freiermuth from Penn State, Hunter Long, Brevin Jordan. So people are, but I just don't think that they see it necessarily as a need in free agency. And look, we saw them sign Logan Thomas. Everybody wanted to sign Austin Hooper. Maybe they have their eye on somebody like somebody who is very
Jonnu Smith
position. Or not even Johnny Smith, because Johnny Smith's a Pro Bowler. Maybe they have their eyes on somebody like a Ricky Seals-Jones, somebody who's freshly learning the position but has very good receiving skills. I personally think that you could use a blocker, somebody who's a little bit better at blocking, and then can pick up the tough yardage. But I do think people are considering it a need. I just don't think they're considering it a wide receiver, quarterback, linebacker level need for us.
Correct. And that's how I feel about it. Obviously, it's a need. I think everyone knows we need playmakers on offense. Right. But at those places where those playmaking tight ends are, it's hard to say they're going to be there and they're going to use that top pick on them because there isn't a lot of plethora of
Kyle
linebackers.
Pitts thing too. People have brought up. I know he'd be used as a wide receiver hybrid, but I doubt that happens anyway. But people are saying that they will draft a tight end.
What about you, Keith? Do you think it needs to be more of an area of concern for Washington fans?
It shouldn't be 1, 2, or third priority. I think you hit the nail on the head. Conversation is going to be had when you need a quarterback. It's the most popular position in in the league, and then now you're talking potential wide receiver. You're talking linebacker need.
Two wide receivers.
Right. So there's bigger needs, and I think that's why the tight end conversation isn't as popular right now.
Right.
Another one that isn't as popular, I brought it up before, I'll just say it real fast, but a backup defensive end. With Ryan Kerrigan leaving and Ryan Anderson more than likely gone, you're going to need somebody to help spell Chase Young and Montez Sweat. Sorry, I just can't stop thinking about Trent.
You're good. And Freddie from the HGBR podcast wanted to ask, do we move on from Dustin Hopkins this offseason, Keith?
Oh, good question. Who's out there? I think you have to compare to who's out there. I mean, Dustin hasn't been, solid, but he still hits some, kicks. I mean, I guess it's just the consistency, of the situation. But I can't recall so many games where we lost because our kicker missed the field goal, and I think that we have to take that into, consideration. But who's out there? Who are we going to replace him with? I mean, I'm sure there's kickers out there. Kicker position is like the last of my thought, which is crazy because it's still an important position, scores points, and you need those guys to be able to kick field goals to win. So it is what it is. But I haven't seen too many Hopkins field goals where we miss and lose the game, so I'm not impressed.
Right. I know that he had a bunch of missed kicks with extra points and stuff. It cost us the Lions game, the Giants game. I get it, but my point was I talked about on Tuesday, Justin Tucker missed a couple field goals over the weekend. Same with Harrison Butker, two of the best kickers in the league right now. It happens, dude. It sucks. And, you can be lights out all season, but when it gets to the dance, sometimes those things happen. With Dustin Hopkins, though, like you said, I don't think there's really anybody else out there that you can go snag. You're not going to have this type of worry with Dustin Hopkins.
Same problem.
And that's why in my mind I think that we should retain him because he gets along with the locker room. Tress Way loves him. Nick Sundberg loves him. He's great in the community. I really like Dustin Hopkins off the field. So I feel like a Ron Rivera guy. I think it's Dustin Hopkins.
Right. And Kyle, I mean, even on Tuesday when I was talking about it, I was leaning one way where I thought that he should be gone, but you kind of talked me into it. I mean, just talking about how everybody misses, and you're right, Keith. I mean, I could think of maybe one or two games where if he would have hit the extra point or he would have hit the field goal, it would have been a different game. But would we have necessarily have won? Who knows?
But at the end of the day, the end of the day, it shouldn't come down because the score was like 20-20. It shouldn't come 100%. Down to you hitting an extra point. The offense 100%. Should be putting up more points.
100%, and that's where I'm at. Where I think that we will keep him around. Will we bring in some competition for him? More than likely, just to get a little bit more out of him. He was also playing with an injury this season.
All about competition.
But usually, though, with kickers, it seems to be weird. It's not usually like you go and sign somebody from somewhere else, except for teams always seem to sign our kickers, and they end up doing really well for them. But it's usually some random person you've never heard of who maybe kicked really well in college or maybe kind of flew under the radar, came from like the Canadian Football League or is an Australian kicker or somebody, and all of a sudden they come in and all of a sudden they're your guy for 5+ years. So definitely they could bring in some competition, and maybe if they have somebody that just flat out beats Dustin Hopkins, yes, but I don't think so.
Burrows.
I think Dustin, bring in Burrows. I think that Dustin Hopkins is a very good kicker, and he's proved it during his tenure here. I think that this year is more of a fluke than anything.
Yeah, and then speaking of Burrows, he has a question for us. With the new government in the States, with the team wanting and everybody wanting the stadium getting back into DC, do you think that there will be progress with that in the next 4 years? And I'll start with you, Keith.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a deal has been being worked on for the past, damn near 5, 6, 7, 8 years.
Right. Yeah.
It just hasn't, it hasn't happened. Absolutely. I mean, I saw a picture on Twitter today where, it showed the Capitol and then you had RFK in the background, and that's just a representation, of what's out there, and what fans were used to. It's a little bit different now that you have this, stadium out in Landover. I mean, I remember the first time being an outsider coming to my first game, and I'm thinking, where the hell is this? What the hell is this? There's nothing else around here. So I wasn't expecting it, but I mean, I think it's going to be good. I think it's going to happen soon. And again, a lot of people don't realize maybe Hurney's also being brought in for that. Maybe he's got some negotiating skills. We don't really truly know. We're only going by what we see on paper from drafts and what the Carolina fans are saying, but maybe this guy's in here and he's going to be the Bruce Allen of trying to get a stadium deal. Who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. And Burrows, I will say, I'm not sure because I don't think Biden was asked the question on if he would be okay with having a stadium in. I know when Hillary in 2016 was asked, she said, heck no, that won't be happening. So I don't know about Biden if he was asked that question. But that being said, I do think it's open, especially with Jason Wright being there. I think he is the perfect man to kind of be the head man for that job because he has a very good reputation. He's quite a salesman. I'll say that right now.
Everybody loves him.
So I think Jason heading it would honestly put us in the right direction. And so, yes, I do think there will be progress to getting back into DC over the next 4 years. What about you, Reed?
I 100% do as well. I think there will eventually. I remember Bruce Allen was brought in here he was supposed to help push these stadium talks along. That didn't happen so far. He's not a man
Virginia's
of his word,
doing great.
they say. Yeah, that's a hell of a culture. The culture's damn good. But the mayor of DC did say this offseason that, no, we don't want a stadium in DC unless they change their name. The name's changing. So
She also said something about Snyder after that, though.
Well,
she
then
kind of walked that back.
Okay. Well, also at the same time, Marion Barry used to smoke crack. So, I mean, it is what it is. I don't know what that has to do with anything. I just thought of him and I wanted to bring it up. I think that there's a very real chance because you're right, Keith. Like going to FedEx, it's just like you're driving on 495 and all of a sudden you're getting off. And I want to think of Washington, D.C. when I think of the Washington football team. I don't want to think of PG County. I don't want to think of, I don't want to think about it ever, honestly. Right. But I think that they need to have a stadium there. I think they know it and they want to get back to the roots.
Yeah, absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree with you. Thank you, everyone, for your questions. To Burrows, Mike, Freddie, Nathan, and Paul, and Colonel, thank you so much. Thank you again, Keith. You were phenomenal. Yes. I'm glad that we were able to reconnect with you, be able to get your stance on the name. I know it's something that you are very passionate about, and I'm glad that you were able to kind of voice your concerns.
What we need to do is we need to get winners to edit a clip to send to Keith of Keith going on his rant. And that way Keith can post it to social media and stuff. Because I think it was very well said. I think you touched on a lot of points that a lot of people don't think of. I never thought of the New York Football Giants thing. Yeah. So I think you did a damn good job.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And like I said, I probably had a lot more in the head here, but I know, time constraints. I could go on and on and on about it. But, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to voice that. And I hope some folks that listen, kind of get a better understanding of where I'm coming from. But I'll also say this too, that I'm getting a better understanding of where they're coming from. Correct. Now, I just want to say, I want to be a part, I want to be a fingerprint of this change. And if, with Jason Wright, following me, I might have that opportunity to be able to give the perspective of the old generation, not speak for the old generation, but give a perspective. Just allow me to have a fingerprint on something to where I can say, I was a part of this massive, crazy change that none of us expected. And if you do that, I'm good.
And the good thing about Jason Wright and Julie Donaldson really is that they're both so in touch with the fans and they both actually listen. Like, do you know how many times I've tagged Julie in something or quoted her in something and all of a sudden she's responded and commented on it. And I'm just like, oh, cool. Yeah. I've met you once on our podcast. And like, that was pretty good.
He responded. Jay Wright responded
Jason
in my
Wright
DM,
responded. Yeah, he's such a, they all seem like such really cool people and they genuinely care about what the fans think. So I think, Keith, if I were you, I would just start trolling the hell out of them. And get on his radar. I'm just kidding. Don't do that. But just get on it. Talk to him, and then you could definitely don't take my advice.
Sadly, I think I'm on his radar, but it's for all the wrong reasons.
That's no, you're not.
Because you're hilarious.
Watch.
That's why. Because he likes to have a chuckle when he looks at Twitter.
Yeah. There you go. Maybe what we're doing is we are leaning towards another Native American themed name, and that's why we brought the gambling back.
Of course you did. Of course you had to make the comment.
I'm gonna let that one finish out.
All right, Keith, thank you so much for joining us, brother. All right, everybody, you can catch us again on Tuesday. Make sure you tune in for that. Please go like and subscribe, review us on iTunes, on YouTube, and everything. We'd really appreciate it, you guys. All right, I'm Kyle.
I'm Reed, and I'm not going to sign off with a shitty joke again because they're all too inappropriate, and I need to write something better.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you guys on Tuesday. Washington football. Woo! Washington football. Woo!